In this video we'll talk about managing human resources. Now, as you can see from the bottom right hand corner, it's only got 20 slides, so it's quite a short video, and it really is just a summary, an overview of some of the issues involved in managing human resources. So what is human resource management? Well, according to Wilton 2011, human resource management is, or it refers to, the framework of philosophies, policies, procedures and practices for the management of the relationship that exists between the employer and the worker. It's a very generalized statement. In other words, I think it says that it looks at anything associated with the relationship between the employer and the worker and the employee. So it looks at the policies of the company and the motivations there are within the organization to participate in terms of remuneration, conditions of employment, the working environment itself, holiday entitlement and so on. So it looks at the whole framework, the whole package of issues surrounding the working situation, health and safety, everything. It looks at all of the issues, and out of this the management is able to enable a set of policies to emerge which are conducive to safe working and good working, which will enable the employees to be motivated and diligent and apply themselves carefully to their work, and hence the organization will be more productive and there will be greater long-term stability of the organization. Human resources and its philosophy is the result of the modern world, the growing importance of people and their potential for organizational efficiencies. If we go back to the Industrial Revolution back in England in the 1700s, the late 1700s and into the 1800s and so on, we discover workers involved in industry and were seen as similar to the machinery with which they were working. The workers facilitated production. We would call this a hard view of HRM. There are two views of HRM, hard and soft. The softer one being one that's more caring and more understanding and is trying to enable the workers to participate in the organization through motivational schemes and recognizing the importance of the workers. So that's the softer route and the one that's more in fashion today. But of course, in today's world we have much better communications between employees from one sector and another. We have more information about companies and about industries. We have more pressures because of globalization and evolving technologies. But out of all of this, there is a perception that workers are important. It's the workers who do the work, who make the products, who deliver the services. So it's in the management's interest to care for the workers and ensure the workers are respected within their occupations, that they're properly remunerated and treated properly and with dignity. Employees are considered as valuable assets for an organization and must be carefully managed in order to achieve success. It's important that the organization see the employees as valuable. They're valuable sources of information about the organization and about the way processes should be carried out. They understand the organization at quite a micro level. But without that understanding, the organization would cease to function efficiently. And it's therefore important that the management deal with the employees from the perspective of caring, understanding, motivation. And through that, the employees will reciprocate with better quality work, more application to their tasks, and the organisation will benefit through less labour turnover. It's a more enlightened workplace. It's a workplace composed of humans interacting with each other and interacting with dignity and respect for each other and their positions. Organisations must consider factors such as employee development, motivation, potential and capabilities. These factors play a significant role in success and competitiveness for organisations. So the organisation takes on the role of educator, providing courses and instruction, and they provide schemes which motivate the employees and value their contribution and their opinions, and seeks their opinions and seeks their suggestions. It looks at the workforce as a valuable resource of the business, and as such is properly treated and properly looked after. Wilton identifies a range of human resource activities for the management of employees. For example, resourcing, HR planning, forecasting and analysing future supply and demand of people resources. The organisation must be adequately resourced from a human perspective. They must have the right personnel in place, and the right personnel should have the right skills. They should have the right motivations. And it's important that the HR department recruit appropriate people into positions and to fill the positions that are vacant within the business. So recruiting and resourcing is important, and the onus is on management to ensure that the financial rewards are such as to encourage the right people into the right positions. And then the HR department should set about enabling these workers to work effectively through proper training schemes and proper motivational packages within the organisation. So recruitment and selection is important. Following procedures for recruitment, employment, contract, management of exit, redundancy and retirement. The HR department should have set procedures to deal with recruitment. They should have set procedures to deal with employment contracts and changes to contracts, and have negotiating procedures that are well established, tried and tested. As far as possible, it should not be experimental. They should look after people when they're leaving the company to ensure they leave with a good feeling about the business. And they should be able to handle redundancies if they arise, and also look after retirements. So the HR department looks after the people and ensures that the right recruitment takes place, the right processes are undertaken, that proper contracts are issued, and there is understanding on both sides as to what their obligations are in terms of the management understanding and the employee understanding what the contracts mean. So resourcing is planning and forecasting and trying to figure out what is the number of recruits that's necessary, and making sure the resources are there to enable the organisation to hire and take on those extra workers, perhaps those employees. And recruitment and selection is looking to bring in the right people, going through various procedures to try and recruit people who match precisely the requirements of the organisation and who are suitable to work within the organisation. And also, of course, looking at the employment contract, as I said, and looking at redundancies and retirement and so on. There's also a role for HR in performance management, arranging for performance appraisals and reviewing and setting individual goals to meet organisational objectives. The whole performance appraisal system should be managed by the HR department, and the documentation for it should be carefully designed, well thought out, and delivered to the various managers and line managers ready for the appraisal. There should be training for the appraisers to ensure that they understand the procedures and understand how to conduct the appraisals. And there should be adequate training so that the appraisers can probe into areas perhaps which need to be investigated. For example, motivation or deficiencies in training or issues that need to be put right. And this will also feed back to a more positive understanding and relationship with the organisation. The employees, if they have an opportunity during the appraisal exercise to give their opinions, then that is a good thing, because it may prevent industrial relations or employee relations problems further down the line. It could even stop a strike from happening, because the issue was flagged up early and because the management acted on it promptly. It could avoid big problems later on. So the whole appraisal system should be well thought out, well delivered, and the appraisers adequately briefed and trained in what to do. Reward and motivation. Well, implementing reward systems to gain employee commitment and cooperation, to motivate employees through financial and non-financial reward packages. It's important that the employees understand what their contribution is, and understand that their contribution is valued by the management. Now, that could be in having Worker of the Month schemes or Worker of the Week schemes. It could also be in issuing bonuses, which could be monetary rewards, or the prospect of promotion, or the prospect of moving to other more interesting tasks within the organisation. There are various rewards that can be contemplated, and the idea of the rewards is to acknowledge the contribution of the employees and to acknowledge the motivation of the employees for conducting themselves in a productive manner. So that is also a part of the HR function. And also learning and development, continuing professional development, CPD, identifying employee training and learning needs, organising and implementing training programs. Training programs need to be well thought out. They need to address particular issues. They need to have a benefit to the organisation, but also should engage the employees. It should engage their interest, so they learn from it and become more productive as a consequence. It could be something very interesting to the employees, because prior to this they did not know how it worked. They didn't understand its significance, and after the training program they have a deeper knowledge of the procedure and will be more engaged as a consequence. It could be something which has very specific skills to the organisation, so that if the employee leaves the employment of the organisation, that particular training program is not of use to anybody else outside of the company. Or it could be generic skill development, which would be useful outside of the company, which would be useful in other companies. It's very difficult to provide training programs that are entirely specifically based on skills within the organisation. It does happen and can happen, but generally speaking there are some generic skill development as well. But it's for the HR department to properly design these programs and to ensure that they are properly and professionally developed and delivered, so that it's a rewarding experience for the employees to participate, but also it leads to greater understanding, greater harmony within the business, and also perhaps better productivity. Employee relations. Well, management of employee welfare, engaging with trade union associations to resolve disputes, industrial action and collective bargaining. Of course, the HR department must have some sort of relationship with the employees, ongoing relationship, and there must be a conduit through which these contacts flows. Now, in some organisations without a union, it will be individual members of staff talking to the HR section. That could be very time consuming and very expensive. If there are many employees within the organisation, each one of them want to talk to HR, the HR department, that could be very time consuming and very difficult to manage. Perhaps having a trade union is a better idea. There's one source, and regular meetings with the trade union, and where the trade union representative brings up issues that have come through from its membership. That might be a more efficient and a better way of dealing with it. So paradoxically, almost, some employers may welcome the involvement of trade unions because there is a single channel, a single communications channel back to the employees. But many employees want the involvement of trade unions for protection's sake, in case they have issues at work, in case they're bullied, or they're not treated fairly, or they're maligned by some members of staff, or whatever it is. They want to have protection. They want to have security of employment, and they want someone looking after them. So many members of the employee workforce may want trade union representative to be involved, and trade union involvement in general. So it's the function of the HR department to deal with the trade union and engage in collective bargaining, and to discuss not just remuneration but also conditions of employment, health and safety, holidays, entitlement, sick leave, maternity leave, and so on, and get some sort of amicable agreement with the employees. Human resources encapsulates a wide range of activities, functions and processes. The aim of a human resource department is develop an environment in which employees and employers work towards a common goal. Really, that's what it's about. The HR department should understand what the corporate objectives of the business are, should understand the thinking of management, and particularly of senior management, and the direction in which the business is moving, and should then be able to communicate this to the employees so that there is a single purpose within the organisation, management and employees and workforce all moving in the same direction, all pulling towards achieving that particular end. And if the HR department are successful in their efforts, that should be the outcome from the process, where the employees, all of the members of the workforce at all levels, at the management, everyone's moving in the same direction, and they all know why it's important. It could be that there is widespread understanding that the organisation is facing considerable competition from overseas because of globalisation, and the imports that are coming in are cheap and perhaps good quality as well, but say cheap, which means the organisation has to find cost-cutting areas and has to work productively, and to do all of that there's a role for the HR department to nudge everybody into line, get everybody working in the same direction, working efficiently in the same direction, and trying to provide the facilities for the workforce in terms of training and motivation and involvement, trying to provide this so that there is greater long run cooperation and productivity. There should be a positive relationship between employees and employers, which promotes a pleasant work culture. The environment in which work takes place should be a pleasant environment, if possible. It should be friendly. It should be supportive, understanding. People spend a big proportion of their lives working, perhaps working in offices or working on shop floors or whatever it is. And they want to have social interaction. They want to be able to talk to their colleagues. And they don't want to talk about work all the time. They want to talk about sports events or social events or whatever. So that there is a community within the business. And that's not a bad thing. That leads to cohesion within the business. It leads to better stability within the business. So there should be a positive working relationship which is born out of those types of relationships that develop within work, where they see each other as colleagues. They're all in it together. They're working towards the same objective. And ideally trying to minimize the divide between management and employee and members of the workforce. Trying to minimize the gap so that the employees see the management as also working hard to try and achieve what they set out to achieve. So it's a cooperative view of the business, and it's a pleasant place to be as a consequence. It's a community moving in the same direction. So those are some ideas about managing human resources and the areas in which the Human Resource Department become involved. Please go back over this and make some notes and be familiar with the importance and the role of the Human Resource Department within an organisation. That's the source I mentioned earlier, where I got some of the quotes from. But that's all we're going to deal with in this video, so let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.